Today's video, it's a bit of an unusual one. I wanted to talk about the one item that I've brought with me on 3 years of continuous traveling and pretty much my entire life. This is it right here. It is my raggedy Canadian passport. This fearless little piece of paper right here has been with me through South America and Asia, through pretty much everywhere I've been. It has been right there by my side, in my pocket, in my backpack. And today it's kind of sad because I have just experienced my last trip ever with this passport right here. It is time to retire it because out with the old, in with the new. This is my brand new Canadian passport. I just got it issued. I've been at home now for a little while, catching up on all the admin work that's required. And the reason I'm moving on to a new, more beautiful passport is not because we didn't have a bond or a connection. In fact, I feel a little bit sad leaving her behind. But it's just that she ran out of papers. I had one more page left and I didn't want to find myself in Southeast Asia where I had no stamps left. And the Thai immigration office is like, yeah, we can't let you in because you can't stamp your book. So that's actually a real thing. Make sure you have pages available when you're traveling. Otherwise, it's not going to be fun. But I wanted to go through my passport and kind of reflect on what have been some of the coolest adventures of each of these stamps, because each of these stamps are memories. They're experiences that were once had, whether it was the beginning of my school exchange, when I left during my last semester of university to do a semester abroad. I actually went to Bangkok, Thailand, or whether it was that first ever trip where I went to Myanmar and experienced what it was like to be a backpacker. Going on a bus for 14 hours through the countryside as somebody threw up next to me because they were getting sick from the motion, and the person in front of me started to smoke a cigarette. These are the funny experiences and memories that are tied with each of these stamps, and so I thought I would go through this booklet and kind of do a little bit of storytelling. Some funny things, some cool things, some nostalgia. You can't really go wrong with it because this right here, well, this is pretty much my past 3 years right in here. Before I start, I will say, if you're wondering what this has been my home studio for the past 2 months. I've actually just been home. It's been fantastic. I've been catching up on the Philippines, on big videos like the top 10 to Southeast Asia, the top 10 to the Philippines, and a few other projects that are in the works. I'm gonna open it up, see what we got. What is the first stamp in this here booklet? I was just thinking about this. I don't know how much of this is confidential. Like, are certain numbers on here like secret? Am I not supposed to share all this? That right there was my education stamp. So that was the one that allowed me to do my 4 months of schooling at Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok, which, by the way, was one of the coolest experiences of my entire life. It was such a breath of fresh air after having worked so hard throughout university. And when I went to Bangkok, yes, I was there for school, but really this was time to relax, to put my feet up. I had nothing left other than electives, so the courses that really didn't matter that much to my GPA, and I treated it that way. I was at school maybe 2 days of the week at most. The other days I was either just hanging out at my residency, working out in the pool, hanging out with friends, or planning and going on trips to surrounding places around Thailand. First trip that I did as an exchange student to get away from the school to do my first real backpackers trip was this stamp right here, and it brought me to Burma. Burma is also known as Myanmar, and this was actually a very difficult stamp to get. It was not one of those that you can just stamp upon entry. I actually had to wake up super early one morning in Bangkok. Me and my friends, there was 3 of us, all guys. We went and got in a taxi, went to the Myanmar immigration office, and we had to stand in line, I think from like 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to make sure that we were one of the first because we had school later that day. I think we spent about 2 hours in total, and then 2 days later, we had to come and collect it. So certain stamps were harder to get, but I think that for all the work it was to get that stamp, it was 100% worth it. It was one of those trips where it really put me through the challenge as a traveler. I remember it was the first time I ever experienced eating food that was sold to me by a vendor who just used their bare hands to grab the fruit. All of us got sick on that trip. All of us experienced discomfort using outhouses that would kind of make you cringe a little bit, but this was the real travel, and I will never forget one of the most incredible travel days of my entire life was in Old Bagan. We just rented out these e-bikes. We ripped around this little village. I actually shot it all with the GoPro, and so the footage you're seeing here, I didn't save it on a hard drive because this was the very beginning of my vlogging career. I wasn't thinking that way. I wasn't thinking to keep footage, so the best I have is a ripped version from YouTube. My favorite thing was going from pagoda to pagoda. These are these beautiful temple structures that you see here, and just going inside of them, exploring them. Each of them had their own unique personality, and with our e-bike bikes. We even went through some of these Burmese villages where the people weren't really that used to seeing tourism. They'd only opened up their border to tourists, I think probably 4 to 5 years prior to that. So they were very friendly, very accommodating, and that will always be a memory that I keep with me here and in here. So this stamp right here, these are the annoying ones. These are the ones that take up a full page of real estate. And when you only have so many pages in your passport, you're always thinking to yourself, sir, please just stamp in the bottom right corner or stamp near the other one. Some of the immigration officers are like, I don't care. They just like stamp right in the center, taking up another one of your pages. But yeah, this is one of the full size ones. This was for Laos, and Laos was probably about 3 months into my first time in Asia. And at this point, I was a backpacker. I was budgeting hard. I was really starting to miss food from home. I had been eating tons of street food. I was probably eating around the $5 to $8 a day mark. I was missing just having a fat sandwich. And so when I got to Laos, I was so stoked because all across Laos, they have a bit of a French culture to them. So you can find these baguette sandwiches. And that for me was like a breath of fresh air, a breath of fresh food. Don't breathe your food, that's highly dangerous. So that was one of my things that I loved about Laos, but definitely the thing that will take the cake was either Luang Prabang, which you would have seen in my top 10 of Southeast Asia, or it was climbing Vang Vieng in the Vang Vieng Challenge. It was this like tour that I did, and oh my gosh, that was one of the most challenging hikes I've ever done, but also one of the coolest things I've ever experienced in my entire life. And after climbing the hill the entire day with probably 30 to 50 pounds on our back, with this huge backpack, a helmet for the next day, we actually got to the very top. We made it! Woo! And we slept at the top in this treehouse. We watched the sunset and we watched the sunrise the following morning. And that very same day after the sun rose, we actually spent the day taking zip lines down the hill as well as rappelling down a waterfall. So these are the really cool things you experience when you go off the beaten path. We took the word of another backpacker that we met on the road. We would have never heard of that or done that otherwise. So I guess one of my biggest takeaways from that moment that I kind of applied to all my future travels is never discredit the advice you get from another traveler. Sometimes the best advice will not be found online. It's found from those other travelers who have experienced things the day before or a week prior. They have some of the most up-to-date information. It's a great way to learn, great way to plan your trip.
If you see this, I died here on these hills today. I won't be making it back.
So this right here, this little guy, luckily only a quarter pager. This is the Philippines, and this was my first ever trip. I've now been 3 times, as you probably know. One of the most memorable things was I showed up to the Philippines. I was exhausted. I'd spent all day traveling. All I wanted to do was get to my destination. I was headed south in a bus going to Oslob to see the whale sharks, but instead of sleeping, I should say, I was kept awake by the people behind me who were just singing Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, whatever it was. These local people from the Philippines were just belting it out, and I was not exactly feeling it at the time, but I realized very quickly that I was not about to be Scrooge and I was not about to sleep. So I decided to say hi, and those very same people turned around and they were like, hey, we're actually going to this island called Sikihor. It's known for like mystic voodoo, witchcraft, and blah blah blah, blue water. So I was like, okay, this sounds a little strange. Like, my mom told me not to talk to strangers, let alone join them on a trip to a voodoo island, but hey, I got nothing else planned and we don't have a hotel booked. So I actually ended up changing my plans. To save money that night, we didn't sleep in a hotel. We actually just sang karaoke through the night, and the 12 of us, we actually bought one room just to store our bags, and the following morning, when we were done singing karaoke, grabbed our bags and headed on the next boat to go to Sikihor Island. For the next 2 days, we rented a local's truck. It was such a piece of crap. It broke down like 5 or 6 times throughout that trip. And one time we even had to have a group of locals come out and help us fix it. It was a total gong show. But these are the memories I remember, not the nights where I had a great sleep. I don't look at the stamps and remember those moments because those were just whatever days. Those were just whatever moments. It's these crazy things, these out there moments. When I look at that stamp, I immediately think of. When I think of that country, that moment comes right back to me. And it's super cool to be able to experience that just by looking at a piece of paper. Another one I see right here is just a 30-day typical stamp from the Thailand entry, and this was probably only about a year ago. This was one of my most meaningful trips, I would say. For me, this was the first time I felt like I was traveling with a purpose, traveling with a real mission, and that was for Black Tusk. That was yeah, like a year ago now. That's crazy to say. And Blake and I, we were prepared. We were men on a mission. We were going up to the north of Thailand to share the message, share the horrors that were going on with the elephants and how they were being treated. And it was incredible how successful we were in doing that. I mean, that video now was watched by about 150,000 people. I'm very, very excited about what that message has done and how many people it's educated. And it was such an incredible experience to have been able to join Elephant Nature Park in their work, not only just joining their sanctuary, but being invited to go and rescue 2 other elephants. If you haven't already seen that, I'll link the videos up here, but that was definitely traveling with a purpose. It brought a new meaning into what we were doing. I would definitely recommend that if you're going on a long travel, maybe try to find a way to do your own purposeful traveling. Maybe that means volunteering at an elephant sanctuary. Maybe it means volunteering to teach English in a local village. These are ways that you can definitely bring a bit more routine, a bit more of a rewarding feeling to your travels, because let's face it, traveling through beaches for 8 months, it's a bit much. You don't get the same enjoyment as you did on day 1. It's just the law of decreasing marginal returns. Every time you take a bite out of your Big Mac, your enjoyment is much less than the first. It's the same thing with travel. By the 3rd month, by the 7th month, your enjoyment is less. But if you can find ways to kind of switch it up, to have either a place that you're living during your long travels or you're doing some work during your travels, I think that it keeps that interest, that kind of excitement to the travels going. That was definitely one of my biggest takeaways from traveling 8 months on my first time abroad. Definitely have moments to break up the backpacker lifestyle, because you'll burn out and you will stop appreciating the beautiful things that you see along the way. I'm looking right now at a stamp for Japan, and speaking on that subject, that was the point where I was burnt out. Kind of over seeing tourist attractions. I was kind of over experiencing new things. I wanted the same comfortable things. I wanted like cheese on a pizza. I wanted a burger the way it was made back home. I see this stamp. I had an amazing time, but I know I could make so much more of that country. So it's coming back. It's definitely a 2018 destination that I hope to see. This is a funny one. I have a stamp here for Vama Vechi. This was a town in Romania or Bulgaria. It's one of the two. This was Bulgaria. Me and the guys, I was on a 3-guy road trip. We rented a car and we had no plans. We just had the car, like no idea what the heck we were doing, but we knew we needed to get down south to Sunny Beach, Bulgaria, which turned out to be a bit of a hole. But it was the journey, not the destination, that made it all worth it. And that was a hilarious travel adventure. That one night, we actually ended up sleeping in the car. And because we couldn't leave the car on overnight, the heat would eventually escape and I would wake up freezing. The 2 guys were in the back, like they had each other's body warmth to keep each other warm, but I was in the front just freezing. Like my back was like this. These are the, again, it's funny how the luxury experiences don't often create the same impact as those like gong show moments, and that was definitely one of them. This right here is my stamp to enter Dublin, and that was definitely one of the most memorable. Again, not a luxury trip, not overly enjoyable at times. I was on a Russian pirate ship going through what was supposed to be Ireland's summer, but it's Ireland, so they don't really have summer. It just rained and it rained, and we had some of the strongest winds. So one day we actually had to stay in Dublin and kind of delay our travels because it was just too windy out there. And let's just say the boat was like this for 3 days. If you want to see what I believe to be my most beautiful, well-told video, it's a vlog, but it's really like a mini short documentary. It's actually linked right here. That is a interview with the captain of the ship who made the ship with his bare hands, with nothing more than a chainsaw and the willpower of Alexander the Great. It's incredible. That right there is just a fraction of all the stamps and visas inside of this booklet, and sadly it's time to hang it up. It's time to put away my faithful travel companion and start making new memories with this one right here, a fresh new book. It even smells like it. It smells really nice. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you enjoyed these travel tales, then leave the video a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button to become part of the channel. And I actually want to challenge you guys to share some of your own funny travel tales. And with the upcoming trip, I'm sure you guys are gonna love where we're going next. It's a mix of tropical meets what the heck are we doing, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. Make sure to hit that notification button so you know when the next video goes up. Guys, let's get lost again in the next one.